This video will review the bleeding procedure for SRAM brakes that feature bleeding edge while using the Park Tool BKD1 bleed kit. For other brakes, including regular SRAM hydraulic brakes, see our brake bleeding playlist found here.
Hi, I'm Truman with Park Tool. Brake bleeding is considered an advanced service procedure and requires a thorough technical knowledge of the braking system. If in doubt, or if this procedure is not working, contact the brake manufacturer for model-specific information. It is important to always use the appropriate brake fluid for the brake being serviced. Never use mineral oil in brakes designed for DOT brake fluid, or vice versa. Also, you should never share bleed kits between DOT fluid and mineral oil. Mixing the fluids can cause damage to components and lead to brake failure, which it can be dangerous. DOT fluid is corrosive. It can irritate the skin and eyes and cause damage to paint and other finishes. So it is important to take care. You should wear gloves as well as eye protection during this procedure. Have plenty of rags on hand to wipe up any spills as quick as possible. Isopropyl alcohol is a good cleaner to help clean and neutralize the DOT fluid if spilled. You may also want to cover your work area to avoid getting fluid on the floor. Dispose of any spent fluid in accordance with your local waste disposal authorities. Now let's get started.
Tools and supplies for this procedure include the Park Tool BKD1 bleed kit, a pad spreader such as the Park Tool PP1.2, a T10 Torx compatible wrench, appropriate hex wrenches, a needle nose pliers, a torque wrench, isopropyl alcohol, and some rags. This bleeding procedure will work on SRAM drop bar and flat bar brakes that feature bleeding edge bleed ports. This procedure is easier if the bike is installed in a repair stand. Depending on if the brake that is being bled is the front or rear, you may benefit from angling the bike in the stand. Begin by prepping the lever. If your flat bar lever is equipped with a contact adjuster, turn it opposite the arrow until it stops. Now, measure the amount of reach you have from the center line of the bar to the tip of the brake lever. To bleed, it needs to be between 75mm and 80mm. If not, make note of your current adjustment and then adjust to between 75mm and 80mm. On some models, this is a tool-free adjustment, while other models require a hex wrench. For drop bars with a contact adjustment, pull back the cover and use a 5mm hex to turn the adjustment counterclockwise till it stops. It can be helpful to tie a rag around the lever to catch any spills. Remove the wheel. Use a pad spreader, such as the Park Tool PP1.2, to push the pads back to allow for bleed blocks once the pads are removed. Depending on the position of the caliper, it can help to remove the caliper and let it hang. This minimizes the amount of lateral or downward travel of the hose, making the path for air bubbles as easy as possible to follow. The pads are removed to prevent any contamination. Remove the pad pin clip with a needle nose pliers, and unthread the pad pin with a 2.5mm hex wrench. For pads with a split cotter pin, use a needle nose to straighten the pin and then pull it out. Use your fingers to pull the pads out. It can help to push from the bottom initially. Install the bleed block and secure with either a pin, rubber band, or a zip tie. If the caliper has two sets of pistons, use both bleed blocks. Attach the syringe holder above the caliper. Now that we have our bike prepped, we can move on to prepping the bleed kit. Install the double-ended hoses onto the syringes with the O-ring capture away from the syringe. Install the red adapter end, part 2618, onto one syringe hose. This will be the lever syringe. Fill it to 1/2 to 3/4 full. Holding the hose end up, push the syringe up to eliminate as much air as possible. then clip the hose. Install the bleeding edge adapter end, part 2612, onto the other syringe. This will be the caliper syringe. Fill it 1/4 full. Repeat the process of eliminating air from the hose and clipping the hose. Remove the bleed screw from the lever using a Torx-compatible T10 wrench. There is an O-ring on this screw. Make sure it also comes out. Install the 3/4 full syringe into the lever. Ensure the O-ring is seated fully and evenly in the capture of the bleed port as you thread in the adapter. At the caliper, remove the rubber cap from the bleed port. Use a 4mm hex wrench to loosen the bleeding edge port, then snug it back up just slightly. Insert the bleeding edge adapter into the caliper. It will snap into place. Install the caliper syringe into the holder. Unclip both syringes. Loosen the bleeding edge port 1 full turn. Push on the lever syringe. Do this until there is about 1/4 a syringe of fluid in the lever syringe and about 3/4 in the caliper syringe. If the fluid was discolored or dirty, close the port and remove the syringe, dispose of the fluid, refill, and start over. This will ensure that your brake system has clean, fresh fluid. If your fluid is clean, then you can use the lever syringe to pull the fluid back up through the system. The vacuum created will dislodge air bubbles. Clip the caliper syringe hose. Close the bleeding edge port. Squeeze the brake lever 3 times, then pull back on the lever syringe to create a vacuum. Then push on the syringe to create pressure in the system. Squeeze the lever syringe 3 times again. Pull back on the syringe, then push on the syringe. Do this procedure until you see no bubbles or very few bubbles. Push on the syringe 1 last time to equalize the pressures. Clip the upper syringe and remove it. Install the bleed port screw. Torque the screw to 1.5 to 1.7 Newton meters. Clean up any spilled fluid with isopropyl alcohol. Reset the lever reach to user's preference. For drop bars, pull the hood back into place. At the caliper, pull the bleeding edge adapter off. Once the adapter is removed, torque the fitting to 1.5 to 1.7 Newton meters. Remove the bleed blocks and clean out the caliper body. Reinstall the rubber cap onto the bleed port. Reinstall the pads, pad pin, and clip. If you remove the caliper, reinstall it. Reinstall the wheel. Pull the brake lever 3 times. This will self-adjust the system to the pad life that is left. If you encounter rubbing, you may need to realign your calipers at this time. See this other video. You're now ready to ride. After bleeding, clear the syringes and hoses of all fluid. To prolong the life of your bleed kit, it is recommended to clean the whole system with alcohol. Start by running alcohol through the hoses. Then disassemble a kit and wipe down each piece, especially the parts that came in contact with the DOT fluid. leave the kit out to dry.
Thanks for watching. You can find hundreds more videos like this one on our channel here on YouTube. And we're constantly working on more. So be sure to subscribe for the latest content for Park Tool. And check out our website, which has even more content to help you make your bike better.